Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. After many years of hard, diligent work by the police in Glasgow, Glasgow became a much safer place. It was once dubbed the murder capital of Europe, but it's cleaned up its act. The policing was efficient. They got to the very root causes of the problem. They built community bonds, and they watched as the rates fell massively, a 60% reduction. It paid off. It was working, and Glasgow became a much safer place to live in and to visit. And now that runs the risk of being completely reversed, and that it may once again revert to its old ways and become one of the most dangerous places in Europe. All of this, of course, is entirely the fault of the SNP and their continual cutting of budgets and resources for the police. We'll take a look at this story and see why Annie Wells, the Conservative member, says that she is appalled at the cuts and hopes that this does not lead to a reversion of fortune. Here goes. So, fears raised that Glasgow could revert back to being one of Europe's most dangerous cities if police cuts continue. Well, if you start taking the police out of the equation, of course it's going to happen. But the SNP keep giving us all that blather that go, oh, we're always putting more money into the police. I'm sure you are. I'm sure the figures show that year on year you're putting more actual cash into the budget. However, that budget isn't increasing by the rate of inflation. So therefore, you're actually year on year going a real term cut. And of course, when you start cutting like that, things give, don't they? You don't have the resources, you don't have the manpower, you don't have the ability to get out and do the sort of groundswell work that has caused this massive reduction in the murder rate in the first place. So what do you expect? So all the lies they say about funding the police better is just that. It's so much BS because you're not funding them enough. Anyway, Scottish Tory MSP Annie Wells has warned that Glasgow could become a very dangerous city once again if the SNP continue to cut funding for Police Scotland. Now, there's a picture of a police car there, and thankfully, I only know, because obviously I'm not someone who speaks English, I only speak Gaelic, and so I see the word police on the front of the car, so that's how I know it's a police car. What a load of old crap it really is, isn't it? Everyone knows what it is. You don't need to put it out in two different versions of the same word. You don't look in the back and go, oh, is that a police car? You know full well it is. Blue flashing lights and they're very loud music, you know. Won't sell many ice creams going at that speed. Morecambe and Wise. Anyway, fears have been raised that Glasgow could revert back to its reputation as one of Europe's most dangerous cities if police cuts continue in Scotland. We previously told how the Scottish Police Federation has warned about a rise in crime if funding for the force keeps declining. Well, it will. They're not going to put money in because it's money they spent on policing, for example, isn't money they can spend on a push for independence. And you've got to get your priorities straight, haven't you? This could hit the country's biggest city, which has had to work hard to shed its infamy as a deadly place to visit. Back in 2005, the World Health Organization dubbed Glasgow the murder capital of Europe. And there had been 83 homicides the previous year in the region, where gangs were known for their booze and blades culture. Police in the city created a violent reduction unit, which involved a lot of community work, with partnerships formed between teachers, doctors, social workers, to stop the offenders at the root. Officers also ratcheted up stop and search, and Holyrood politicians increased the maximum legislations for carrying knives. And of course, it worked. This was the whole point. It absolutely worked. While you've got the resources. And of course, this was brought in before the SNP got their grubby little hands on the levers of power and basically just reversed all of this good work by wanking all the money away on independence. Over the past decade, Glasgow has seen a 60% drop in homicides and violent crime in Scotland, has fallen to historic lows. Hard work paying off. It does work. However, Scottish Tory, I can't tell you what, there's a Scoria place up on the east coast. It is, isn't it? Scourie, I think it's pronounced. Right up the top end. As they going up to Land's End? The other one. John O'Groats. Anyway, where are we? Scottish Tory. I've lost my place now. Scottish Tory MSP for the region, Annie Wells, fears this may backtrack due to a lack of cops on the beat. Writing in the Glasgow Times, she said, the time and effort invested in helping Glasgow shed its reputation as one of the most dangerous cities was considerable. And it not only made for a safer place, protecting lives and improving communities in the process, but became the envy of the world in many respects. Officials from London and even the US have visited to see for themselves what exactly changed in order to persuade gang members to put down the knives and countless others to stay out of trouble in the first place. But the most recent warnings on policing numbers cannot, she say, be ignored. If the decline of frontline officers patrolling Glasgow streets continues to fall, the Scottish Government may not be patting itself on the back for much longer. No, because once you start removing sort of obvious policing, where they're not out there, they're not driving around, they're not walking around, they're not seen, crime will always increase. It's a function. If you reduce policing, you increase crime. It's just human nature. Scottish Police Federation General Secretary David Kennedy warned that lives could be lost if officers continue to retire and are not replaced. Now, you can't stop them retiring, but you can at least replace them. But a recruitment freeze is currently in place with no cops being trained until after the festive period. Because they've run out of money. And the reason they've run out of money is the SNP are wasting money on other areas like pretty shiny brochures. You can have as many pretty shiny brochures as you like, that isn't going to reduce crime. He claimed that there would no longer be time for community policing, which means that the force becomes reactive instead of proactive. And it was this type of policing that helped bring down Glasgow crime in the first place. The city remains Scotland's knife crime capital, and that's still the case, with there being 160 recorded assaults with a sharp object in 22-23, meaning that 13.5 in every 100,000 people were assaulted with a knife last year. You're still twice as likely to get stabbed in the region than anywhere else in the country. It's still not a wonderful safe place, but it's got a lot better. Makes you wonder how bad it was. I was never there. 2005 I was. I had an interesting tangent. I had an interesting time. 2005, I went to Glasgow to buy a car. Don't ask, too long a story. I knocked on the door, and there was an old man. I said, "Oh, hi, I'm here to buy your car." And he went, "I'm not selling my car." "Oh, I've been given this address." And he goes, "Hang on a minute." And he called Mary or whatever his wife. Mary, what? Have you put an advert up? Are you selling our car? And she's like, comes to the door. No. So I show her on the phone the address. And she said, "Oh, well, you want the other one? There's 2 roads with the same name. How weird is that?" And I chose poorly. 50-50 chance. And I got it wrong. Anyway, eventually I had to cross over the other side of the city. Got to this place, knocked on the door. Yeah, bought the car. Drove home. Well, I brought a friend up with me. And he drove the car I just brought home while I brought my car back. I didn't even get that car. He bought it straight off me. Drove it back and said, "I love this car." And he bought it for me. What a day. There you go. Really interesting story, eh? Sorry. Anyway, Miss Wells added, we need and trust the police on the street to help reduce the risk and ensure perpetrators are caught and brought to justice. Their presence acts as a deterrent to those considering the crimes and gives another layer of protection to ordinary people. Yes, but protecting ordinary people isn't what the SNP is about, is it? Damaging people. That's what it's about. A Scottish Government spokeswoman said, previously, the 2024-25 budget has not been set and funding decisions will be made as part of the Scottish budget in December. Policing is a priority for the government, and if you believe that, you believe anything. Which is why, despite difficult financial circumstances due to the UK government austerity, we've increased police funding year on year since 2016-17, with 1.45 billion being invested this year. Now, 1.45 billion isn't the increase. That's just how much the total they're putting in. But it isn't enough for the whole of the country. And this is what I say. This claim that they're increasing the funding. Yeah, they may be increasing it in terms of the base number, but it isn't an increase in line with inflation. And if it isn't increasing in line with inflation, it is, of course, a cut in funding. They try to make us out to be stupid, but we are not stupid. Coming up. You've got to feel sorry for the people living in Glasgow. I mean, if you've got an SNP government that is deliberately endangering your lives, you think, maybe I won't vote for them again. And yet people in Glasgow do. It is amazing, isn't it? It's absolutely astounding how much so many people vote. It's like turkeys voting for Christmas, isn't it? It is. Anyway, I shall round off there. I will just say one other thing. Sorry, another tangent. I've talked about that street name where, two the same name. I also, maybe 10 years ago, I think it must be, I went up there and we were going through, and so the guy I was with, and he said to me, "Yeah, let me show you something," because we were where we were. And he took me around. I had to get out the car and get a picture taken because of the name of the road. I just thought it was one of the best names of a road I've ever heard. Butterbiggins. Honestly, it sounded as though something out of Tolkien. Imagine some hobbits running around in front of it. Butterbiggins Road. What a great name. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I do hope that's been illuminating. I do hope it has put the fear of God into you if you live in Glasgow. You know you can't keep voting for the SNP if you want your children to grow up and your grandchildren to grow up in a safe environment, because it just isn't going to happen. As long as they spend money on glossy brochures and not actual policing, your life is going to get a lot worse. Anyway, thank you. Take care. Speak to you later. Bye.